Finals MVP is currently averaging career highs in points, boards, and dimes, helping the Celtics to second place in the East while still missing Jayson Tatum to injury. Here's our own Chris Canty on Unsportsmanlike on Brown.
If he wins the MVP, is his career better than Jayson Tatum's? Tatum is more first-team All-NBA. That's what he has.
If you're an MVP and a Finals MVP, you got a ring. Yes.
Vince, do you agree?
I love Chris Canty. But no. Look, and I hate putting these two guys against each other because that's what they feel like has been happening their entire careers. But when you look at Jayson Tatum's career, he's had 5 All-NBA seasons. He's got an Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Jaylen Brown does have the Finals MVP. He's made All-NBA team 1 time. When I think of historical players, James Harden has an MVP, Dwayne Wade does not. There's no way I'm taking James Harden over Dwayne Wade historically. Isaiah Thomas does not have an MVP. Allen Iverson does. I'm not taking Allen Iverson over Isaiah Thomas. Even if it's the equalizer, like player against player, the MVP doesn't make you better historically than another guy, let alone in a unique situation like this. And I'm not taking anything away from Jaylen Brown because he's having a fantastic season and would be a deserving MVP as he's already been in all these other phases of his NBA career.
Vinny, I would tell you that I get where you're coming from because Jayson Tatum has been underappreciated for years. He's a 4-time All-NBA first-team player. He's an NBA champion. He's been to 2 NBA finals, been to 5 conference finals appearances, et cetera, et cetera. But we can't dismiss this question as if there's no way that you can look at Brown if he wins an MVP, and here's why. Because he's been underserved throughout the years. Think about it. He's been to 6 conference finals. Jayson Tatum didn't go to no conference finals without him. He's been there every single time. He was there as the number 2 option. He was there as a reliable dude. And then on top of it all, he wins a conference finals MVP. He wins an NBA finals MVP. He wins a championship. Tatum is right there. And so you have to look at it from that standpoint to then step up. Remember, he got his $300 million contract before Tatum got it, okay? And what does he do? Tatum goes down, and all the pressure is on him. He doesn't have the assets that he used to have, and he simply goes out there and averages nearly 30 and is a top 2 candidate for league MVP honors. I'm not saying it's a definitive yes, and it's not one against the other because obviously they work considerably well together and they deserve the acclaim that they get. But we can't summarily dismiss the possibility that some people will look at Jaylen Brown and presume that he will have had a better career when so much is measured by your postseason success. And in the postseason, he stepped up. And then remember, we look at these numbers, there's certain things you can't look at numbers about. His defensive prowess. You understand? When you talk about what he did and, you know, how he exposed Luka and all of this other stuff in the finals, Jaylen Brown is arguably the best 2-way player in basketball. We can't ignore that. So I'm just saying it's a worthy discussion. Nothing definitive about it, but it's a worthy discussion.
I'm going to add this too. Jaylen Brown's 3 triple-doubles this season, most by a Celtics player in over a decade. He's doing a lot right now for the C's, that's for certain. Coming up on First Take, Floyd Mayweather.
College to the pros, and boy, Victor Wembanyama on the hot Spurs. 9 straight games trying to get to that mark against Cade Cunningham and the Pistons in the D, but early second quarter, Spurs down 4. Look out, Wemby.
Saw that coming.
Cade Cunningham picking the pocket and throwing it down. Finished with 16 points, 10 dimes, and Wemby in the background. Oh, my gosh. Pistons found themselves just down by 2 at the break. More work to do. Early third, Cade finding a shot, but then wait a minute. Wemby's like, I'm 7'6", don't forget. Stephon Castle out in front.
Extra pass, swing, swing.
Oh, yeah. Knocks down the triple. Spurs up 4, but coming into the game, the alien had a block against every team. Didn't have one against the Pistons. Let's just say you can check that off the list.
Yeah.
Then later, Dylan Harper finds Devin Vassell, knocks down another triple. Spurs up 13. He had a game high of 28 in this one. And then trying to play bully ball here against Wemby. It doesn't work, Paul Reed. He's 7'6", probably like 7'8" with shoes. And then up top, from Castle to Wemby, defense at one end, and then the oop on the other. Finished with 21, 17, and 6 blocks in this one. Spurs from 114 to 103. All right, to dive more into the association, our sister from another Mr. Ashley Nicole Moss, not in studio, but she's still here. Appreciate to have you here. This is the first game of the second half and also the first between these two here. A lot of people will say this is an NBA final preview. Your thoughts on that?
Well, they are forgetting about my New York Knicks, Brandon. I will tell you that.
No, we're not.
But look, I've been on the fence about the San Antonio Spurs as like a true championship contender, and people on Twitter have been saying, "How did you feel that way? They've beaten OKC 4 times." Yes, I understand that, but for me, I just think with the physicality that the Detroit Pistons play with and the way that they play, very reminiscent of the bad boy Pistons, and they get away with that physicality. For me, this changed my mind on the San Antonio Spurs as championship contenders. No, not to OKC and what they've been able to do. They've absolutely steamrolled them, throughout the season and just really enforced their dominance on that team. But I just think not only with how the Pistons have been running the Eastern Conference, and in addition to the physicality that they play with, the fact that the Spurs were able to beat this team, for me, changed my mind in what I think the San Antonio Spurs can do this season. And I am officially on the San Antonio Spurs can go to the NBA Finals this season.
And Spurs right now on a 9-game win streak, playing pretty well. And you look at Detroit and you say, okay, they had won 5 straight before losing last night. They don't get much let up because tomorrow night they will host the Oklahoma City Thunder. So you look at Detroit, forget about the Knicks. But if they're going to go through the East and win the East, then you got to win the West if you want a ring. How will we find out, and what will we find out in that game?
We're going to find out what the Pistons are made of in this stretch, right? Outside of the Spurs, you have OKC. They have Cleveland, I believe, twice. And these are some of the top-tier teams in the NBA. The Cavs are finding a groove right now. How long that lasts, only time will tell. But look, I think the thing about post-All-Star break basketball is people are done playing around. This is when everybody kind of separates themselves in the pack. You have the playoff contenders, the championship contenders, and then you have everybody else. And if you want to be the best, you got to start beating the best. And, they didn't beat San Antonio Spurs last night. Let's see if they can bounce back against Oklahoma City. But these matchups are really going to showcase what this team is made of when it comes to being in the NBA Finals, when it comes to being a championship contender. Because more than likely, especially when you talk about the Western Conference, there's only 3 teams that I believe that they're going to be facing if they get to the finals. It's going to be OKC. I'm still putting the Denver Nuggets in there. And now I'm officially on the San Antonio Spurs bandwagon when it comes to the NBA Finals. You got to be able to beat any of those teams in the regular season if you want to show people that you're a legitimate threat when it comes to the NBA Finals if you get that far.
So the reason we're talking so much about the Spurs is because the Thunder, obviously they don't have SGA. He's still on the shelf for quite some time, been missing some time, the reigning MVP. And now likely it depends on when he comes back, in consideration the number of games you can't miss. But Ashley, for my question to you, in terms of 65 games here, how does this open the race for MVP if SGA is unable to return in that a lot of time?
It opens it completely. I mean, one thing I think also the NBA is going to have to look at this 65-game minimum. Obviously, I believe it was implemented because of all the load management. And, you want guys, you hope that guys have a desire to win these awards. Obviously, there's clauses in their contract that are very beneficial if they do win these awards. And then you start talking about supermaxes and things like that. But look, Nikola Jokic can only miss 1 more game. So that could be virtually anything. You wake up with a stomach ache one day and you're out, and that's it. He's out of the contention for MVP. So you got to really start looking at guys like Jaylen Brown. You got to start looking at guys like Cade Cunningham. This may very well be a possibility for them. Obviously, you also have Luka as well. But this may very well be a possibility for them because of that 65-game minimum. I do believe, though, that we're going to see a change to that, if not this season. If this change to that in this off season, because it just doesn't, at this point in the NBA, it just doesn't make sense anymore. It's just not feasible. And guys miss games for legitimate reasons. And there's got to be a little bit more cushion room when it comes to this minimum. These aren't guys that are just sitting out because they want to rest their body for the postseason. These are guys who've been out with legitimate injuries. And I feel like there needs to be some, circumstances that allow guys to still be in the running for particular awards, even if they've missed a certain amount of games. I expect to see that extended, honestly.
Yeah, actually, you look at it, Jokic can miss 2 more games, and then boom, he can no longer be able to win MVP. And the way that it might play out when you project, it might just be a who's left and who can win it. Cade Cunningham maybe at the top of that list. I know you mentioned Jaylen Brown. Like, is it truly going to be a race between those two to be MVP? Who else do you like?
Still think you have to put Luka in the conversation. I think, though, I don't want to say like a who's left, because I think that's disrespectful to what I think Cade and Jaylen have done this season, and they've played phenomenal basketball. I mean, realistically, if we're going to have the real conversation, even taking the game minimum out of the equation, Jaylen Brown and Cade Cunningham should very much be in the conversation for MVP, even if you take that out of the conversation, because they've been playing that phenomenal. I mean, we're talking about the Boston Celtics, who are currently sitting at second in the Eastern Conference without Jason Tatum, in a year that a lot of people thought would be a gap year, simply because not only did they lose their star player, one of their star players, but they also offloaded so many of their championship roster to avoid being in the luxury. So, like, 2 things were working against them, and they're still a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference. Cade Cunningham, we don't have to get too in-depth with that. I mean, we're talking about the Detroit Pistons sitting at number 1 in the Eastern Conference. This is a team that 2 years ago was absolutely abysmal. The way that he has just taken leaps and strides in his game, phenomenal. He can do everything well on the court. But the unfortunate reality is, when you take SGA out of the equation, who a lot of people had as a favorite, also we can't forget about Wemby. I always forget about the alien down in San Antonio. He's very much, I believe, in the conversation too. But, when you take SGA and Jokic out, who a lot of people had as their favorites for most of the season so far, it's now a wild, wild west race to the MVP. I think it's up for grabs by a few of these guys.
We'll see what happens there. We saw those 4 right there in the favorite, but want to give some love to the Kings, because coming into last night, they had lost 16 straight games. Only won 13, but they finally lightened the beam there. Russell Westbrook there with 25 points. Look at it. Oh, yes, not so fast. Need to clock in tonight, big fella. Been a great run, Sacramento, the beam. And then how about this? A little love for Punch over there.
Oh, my God.
The viral, we all love Punch. This beam is for Punch. That's nice.
I love that.
That's nice.
Tell those monkeys to chill on Punch. I'm gonna run up on them.
I'm with you, Ash. They need to welcome him to the fold and let him be a part of the community.
Yeah, for real. Stop trying to mess with him. Let him just chill with his little orangutan stuffed animal. I'm not playing with those monkeys.
There's a little love for Punch. He's growing up. There's been some video. He's fighting back a little bit. He's still dragging his little toy. So.
He's a baby. Just hug him.
Yeah, there you go. Ashley Nicole Moss, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Tapping in with you. Everything going on in the NBA, like these games tonight. Oh, look what you get at 10:30. Nice little special out west. Magic at the Lakers.
Ain't nothing special about that.
Hey, we're 4 games above 500. Look out, y'all. Look out. Thunder in action at the Raptors. Knicks, Cavs, Ashley's team. Celtics, Suns at 9 Eastern.